All right, hello and welcome to the second installment of our Sales Shiro broadcast, where we feature some of the best female sales leaders in the business. And today we're delighted to be joined by Cara Armstrong, who is from the UK, up by the Liverpool area. Cara specializes working with founders with her company Jarvi and Co to elevate their B2B business from 6 to 7 figures and basically help people how to scale their business, which is always a tough thing, especially like if you're a small and growing business. I'm also joined, as usual, by my colleague Martha Neumeister, who is in lovely Vienna, Austria, a very hot Vienna, Austria
Hi.
today.
Yes, at the moment, very hot.
And we'd like to welcome all of you. And Martha's going to be looking at your comments, your questions, and we'll be going to them during the broadcast. So please put your questions in the chat, whichever platform you're watching on, and we would be delighted to answer them. So, and of course, I forgot about myself. My name is John Golden. I am the Chief Marketing Strategy Officer, Pipeliner CRM, also the host of the Sales Pop podcast. And we're going to get right into it today. Most people are on, a lot of people are on calendar fiscal years. So here in the US, I'm here in San Diego. We've just passed Labor Day, which is traditionally like the end of summer, and then the whole just end of year push just kicks into gear, and everybody goes a bit crazy. So, what we want to talk about today is how do you optimize the final part of your year, right? So that you can really focus on bringing the sales home. Because you have a finite amount of time now, and you want to deploy your resources as optimally as possible. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So, Cara, I mean, you have your own business as well. You're heading into the last part of the year. What is some of the advice that you would give to businesses and how to optimize this period of time?
Yeah, no, sure. Thank you, John, for having me on. I'm really looking forward to the conversation today. It's definitely at the forefront of my mind. We're going into the final part of the year, and you really want to, ensure that you're optimizing your sales strategies as best you can in order to kind of close the year out on a high. And I know sometimes, strategy is kind of seen as something you maybe do once a year, twice a year, but this is something that I really do on a quarterly basis, to really take a step back and evaluate where I'm at in my business, instead of always, as a founder, we're always, guilty of working in our business and not always on our business. And I think it's a really good opportunity to do like an audit of the previous quarter and, the quarters that have gone before, from a sales and marketing point of view, to really analyze what is going well and perhaps what is not going well, and really look at it from a customer-centric point of view, to really identify, okay, where are my customers coming in, and perhaps where am I converting them, and perhaps where am I not converting them, and really try and hone in on the places that need to be optimized efficiently, in order to, really try and gain some traction for that final quarter of the year.
Yeah, and what's interesting what you say there about doing the micro strategies, coming into it, because especially nowadays, because if you think about it, how fast things change and how different things influence the market. Like, say, for in the US right now, we obviously have presidential elections coming up. There's a lot of stuff going on that can impact buying decisions. So looking at, as you said, like re-looking at your strategy, like going into the last quarter. I mean, you don't have to you're not doing a full-blown strategic planning, but looking at it strategically, as opposed to just, charging forward as you were like in the last quarter.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, like you touched on, customer behavior is changing constantly now. Buying behavior is constantly evolving. And perhaps what worked even last year or in January might now not be working. And I think sometimes, we can get in the weeds a little bit within our business and kind of think, well, it did work, so I'm just going to keep going with that, even though sometimes there are, shifts within buying behavior, even within, a 3 to 4 month period, depending on the industry that you're in. Mm-hmm. So I really like to kind of, take an audit with my own business and with my client's business, to really identify, okay, where are you really strong? And let's double down on that. but where are there some areas that you can perhaps optimize in order to create, a more highly converted sales system to really kind of drive that, the sales for the end of the year.
Yeah, and one of the other things that we face up against, and especially because, I mean, most markets are a little bit rocky right now. Most is the reluctance to make decisions, right? So you're probably a lot of businesses, and I'm sure a lot of businesses you work with, you're going into the last part of the year, and you have some great opportunities, but there's still a reluctance on behalf of the buyer to purchase. And sometimes, as we know, when things are a bit dodgy, people, no decision becomes their default position. So how do you deal with that? Like, just getting people off the fence and saying, come on, I know you're stressed or whatever, but now is the time to jump because you want to set yourself up for next year.
Yeah, absolutely. I love this question, and it's something that I do actually spend quite a lot of time with my clients on. I'd say there are two main things that you can do to kind of move the needle when it comes to, persuading your buyers to kind of, take that buying decision. And the first one is your messaging. And I think quite often we don't always speak to the buyers that are ready to buy, and that we might actually be talking to customers that we are having to, create awareness that they maybe have a problem or a desire. And then there's a lot of nurturing that needs to be done in order to get them over the line to make a buying decision. But if you're actually able to tweak some of, the copy and your marketing messaging to really speak to the buyer that has already, done all of the analysis and understands that they do want to buy, but they are just looking for the unique solution that is perfectly suited to them, and really tailor your market messaging to speak to that buyer, the buyer that is already empowered and knows that they want to make the decision, but they're just looking for you to specifically speak to them so that they know that you are the unique solution for what they're looking for. And a really great way of doing this is getting really micro specific with your marketing. So you really need to understand your customer and the thought processes and buying decisions that they go through, and really make sure that your market messaging is specifically talking to them in their language. And I think sometimes as business owners, we are the subject matter expert, it's our zone of genius. And sometimes we can be guilty of, using language and terminology within our copy that we understand perfectly, but perhaps our ideal customer doesn't understand perfectly. So I think it's really important. And, if you're working with customers or clients that, really are your ideal client, to really take the opportunity to get to know them a little bit better, and to really understand, what made them buy, what was part of their thought process, and what language do they use when they're trying to make that buying decision, and then really incorporate it into your marketing copy, because this will just help the buying decision so much more if they feel like you're in their head. And it's almost like, oh gosh, okay, I was thinking that, I knew that, yes. And you're then able to tailor, your service or product specifically to the problem that you now are aware that they're having. So that is something that I would say can, some simple tweaks within your copy can really actively convert people far quicker if they feel like they're really, being understood. And people make buying decisions when they feel understood. So I would say that was number one, would be to kind of look at your copy, and then to really look at incorporating sales psychology. So everybody buys differently. There are 4 main kind of buyer types, and people need different things in order to make buying decisions. And quite often, with our marketing or on sales calls, we maybe only have one, presentation deck or one sales call, or, we kind of tend to have that same narrative for every customer that we speak to, but actually people buy quite differently. Some people need analytics, so they need statistics. Right. They need data. They need to really understand everything there is to do with the product before they make a buying decision. Whereas other people are more, driven towards social proof and testimonies and things like that. So if you're not, focusing your copy and your sales on addressing the 4 buyer types, then you're going to be leaving customers at the door because they're not receiving the information in the way they need to receive it in order to make a buying decision.
Yeah, and that is one of the toughest things, especially if you're a smaller growing business, is one of the toughest things is that, you have to, tailor your messages to different audiences, because there is that tendency to do like a one size fits all messaging, which, as you said, like may hit one of your buyer types, may hit one audience. And it often seems like, maybe at this time of the year, you're like, oh, I don't want to do all that. I don't want to do that work of tweaking stuff. But I mean, it's incredibly important, obviously, because, you want to buy from somebody who gets you, right? Who gets what's going on. So just a moment, Martha, you got any questions from the audience?
Yeah, about the ideal customer profile. What are some ways companies can keep their ideal customer profile up to date as the market and customer preferences change?
Oh, great question. So I think how I like to say is if you're working already with ideal clients, so you've got customers or clients that have just effortlessly kind of slotted into the sales process, they've brought quite quickly, you've not had to do much convincing and they've become a customer relatively easy, that these are the customers that you really want to take the time to really get to know and focus your market research on your customers. So I think sometimes we can focus too much on what the market's doing, and we do, big market research, and, we can sometimes focus too much on what our competitors are doing, where actually, if we really focus on the customers that we work with that have really converted easily and spend the time to really understand what their wants, their needs, their desires, and what ultimately converted them into a buying, customer, then you're able to start, putting together these profiles. And once you start having enough of these customers, you'll be able to see commonalities within the profile. And you may have, one or two profiles. You don't always just have to have one, but you will start to see a trend. And you'll be able to start tracking once you can understand why people are converting, and you're able to integrate that into your sales strategies to really get that feedback as to why they have purchased. You are able to keep a consistent, almost portfolio on your customers of information around what made them buy, and that you will then very easily be able to track if the trend has changed. So I think sometimes we don't know our customers well enough to then understand what's changed. But if you're able to start having these conversations regularly and really make it, everything you do as a customer-centric strategy and really know your customer deeply, then you will be able to start to track when things change. And then you're almost able to audit yourself before it happens to say, okay, wait a minute, something's gone amiss here. And you then need to go away and do some further customer research.
Yeah, no, those are great points, and also the fact that we can get complacent sometimes with our customers and just assume that everything is cool, that they haven't changed, that there's, and because we're so focused on maybe getting new business that we don't, as you said, we don't notice the changes in our customers. One of the other things, I mean, you work with a lot of businesses and maybe a lot of founder-led businesses like your own. Obviously, coming into the end of the year, you want to maximize everything. The temptation for the business owner or leader is to be full on involved, like maybe in there at the late stages, trying to like super close everything on behalf of the whole, and pushing salespeople aside because they're. How do you help those founders to take a more, shall we say, a more strategic approach as opposed to just desperately just trying to force business over the line?
Yeah, no, sure. That's a great question. I think, we're all guilty as founders. We're passionate. And, like I said, we're subject matter experts. So we always believe that, we're probably the best person for the job. But what I really like to work with my clients on is around creating freedom within their business. So I think when you're scaling, and especially when you kind of get to that 6-figure and you want to transition into that 7-figure mark within your business, if you become the sales system, if your business only makes sales when you are active, when you are proactively selling, then you will ultimately hit a plateau and you will be capped within your growth, because you fundamentally won't be able to do all the things all the time without creating a bottleneck within your business. And ultimately it will also drastically decrease the freedom that you have within your business to do other things, to be able to be creative, strategic, or to actually just buy some time back in your calendar, without always having to be the sales system. And I really like to encourage businesses, and it's something that I work really closely with my clients on, is to create really high converting sales strategies that don't require you to be present all the time. So once you're able to know your business really well and know what converts your customer and who your ideal customer is and how you uniquely solve their problem or desire, then you are able to create visible sales strategies as well as invisible sales strategies within your business to kind of automate some of that process and to allow other people within the business to also, have the autonomy to do the selling. So I think there comes a time in a business, if you do want to scale to 7 figures and you are so actively, selling in order to get deals over the line, you ultimately will cap your growth, and that it's essential to kind of take a step back and, and analyze what you can do from a sales and marketing point of view to allow you not to feel like you always have to have that control in order to convert customers.
Yeah, and those are really, really great points, and that because developing other people and helping other people to be successful can be quite difficult, as you said, because you're used to doing it yourself. So systematizing things, and also I guess trust is a huge factor, because I mean you may have been working well all through the year, but now the end of the year is coming and you're getting a little wound up. You can erode the trust of maybe the other sales, your salespeople, your marketing people, whatever, if you sort of try to take over too much.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, like you mentioned, John, if you're able to systemize parts of your business, then you can kind of create a business that is able to run without you somewhat. And then that allows, people to have autonomy and feel the trust, but also for you to be able to trust that everything is
Mhm.
okay. So it's not about, just relinquishing the,
Sure.
control and the reins and saying, go and, sell. It's about taking everything that and optimizing, your sales strategies to really allow some of it to be automated and on autopilot. And then for also from, a more complex B2B world to allow other people within the business to also be able to convert those customers. And what I really like to do is, we get the sales strategy to such a point that you're able to kind of understand your customer so well and what they're looking for, and the buyer cycle is shortened quite drastically, that it's actually not as scary to hand over the reins to other
Mhm.
people, because there's not so much work that needs to be done in order to convert them and get them over the line. And it becomes slightly more of like a replicatable system. So it's actually not as hard for founders to do it once that's in place. I think the idea perhaps is more scary than, the
Yeah.
reality.
Yeah, and I think that's often the case with a lot of things. What's it? Fear, false evidence appearing real. There you go.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry, Martha, you have another question?
Sorry, I was on mute. What steps can businesses take to make sure that the brand strategy matches what the customer is really need?
Okay. No, this is great. So I think sometimes, we can create a brand strategy around what we believe the brand should be about and what we are very passionate about. And actually, a really successful brand strategy is centered around your customer. So
Mhm.
if you're able to really understand your customer, and going back to what we were saying about your ideal customer profile, if you're able to really understand your customer deeply around what they're looking for, what their wants, needs, desires, what their experiences are, like what's impacting their buying decisions and the kind of individual that they are personally and professionally, and really start to build an idea of who our customers are, then we're able to really naturally integrate that into our brand strategy. And I think sometimes brand strategy can be looked at as quite like a surface level aspect. And, it's around, the logo and the website and the overall kind of visual aspects. When I really like to look at brand strategy as, kind of an iceberg, and, there's the tip that's pointing out, but the majority of it is, underwater. And actually the majority of a brand strategy is around purpose and substance and positioning. And that's really important and necessary to really resonate with your ideal customer, because if it doesn't, if you don't understand what the main purpose of your customer for buying from you is, or you don't know what they're looking for in your product, then you're not able to position yourself correctly, and you're not able to then really create brand values within your business that resonate with your customer. So I would say you're going to be doing some market customer research anyway. Take it one step further and really dig deep and understand what their values are. And you're then able to really naturally incorporate it back into your brand strategy, because there will just be that alignment there because you really understand your customer deeply.
Yeah, no, those are great points. And also I think on top of that is the brand strategy, as you said, but the brand strategy is something that's the customers and buyers they experience in every interaction with your company, right? So regardless of whether it comes through digital, face to face, like over the phone, whatever, and therefore, I guess if your brand says that you're very you're very interested, you deeply care, you really want to understand, you want everything to fit nicely, but then the end of the year comes and you suddenly start just trying to, like, as you say, just trying to close business, you can, if you're not careful, you can suddenly jar with your brand strategy.
Absolutely. And I think it's something that, this is why the, quarterly audit is so important, because I think sometimes, if you're just kind of racing and trying to hit those revenue goals, that you can lose sight of the things that actually create a brand. And, I like to say anyone can have a business, but not everybody can have a brand. And people buy from brands. In 2024, people buy from brands. There are so many, companies on the market, and there is so much choice out there that customers are now have the luxury to pick the one that resonates with them the most. And that comes from every single touch point, like you say, John, throughout, the very first time they come into contact with your brand, right through to when they're a customer and you want to keep them as a customer. Mm-hmm. If your brand strategy isn't threaded throughout every touch point that you have, like you say, they're going to pick up on it if it's not ringing true. And I do think sometimes, we don't always put enough focus on consistently knowing our brand strategy, and for it to adapt over time, but to really check in with ourselves and make sure, we're still aligning with the brand that we really want to create.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it's, as you said, like the quarterly audit, but also every interaction, just being cognizant of the fact of, is this communicating who we really are, or is this at odds with who we really are? I mean, I think that's so important. And I think the other thing too is when you work with founders and owners is, I mean, one of the things you got to do coming into the end of the year, and we're talking about brand strategy, is the right amount of pressure, but also the right amount of calmness, right? So you don't go too far in one direction or the other. How do you help people balance that?
Oh, I think this becomes less of a problem when your sales and marketing systems are already set up to highly convert customers. So you're less kind of reactive to the environment because you already have put the strategies in place that are kind of automated and are already kind of thought about ahead of time, and that you're not so reactive to the fact that you need to, hit your revenue goals. So this is something that I really think has such an important influence on founders, is when they're able to kind of take that time and create, the sales and marketing strategies that highly convert their customers quickly and efficiently, and when they know who their ideal customer is. When it comes to the end of the year, it's just about turning that up. It's not about, drastically changing anything different in order to, hit that final milestone that you're going for. It's just about, taking it to that next level and not being so fully reactive. And that is really hard. But I think that comes with when you have put systems in place that support your sales and marketing throughout the process, then it becomes less of kind of a personal feeling of, I've got to kind of get it to the end. And it's more, I can trust the sales strategies that I put in place to just continue to convert the customers that I want to work with.
Yeah, absolutely. And Martha, do we have time for one more question from the audience?
Yes, but it's about what we talked previously about the customers. How can we stay focused on their on our customers while also keeping track of what competitors are doing? So which role does competitors play?
Okay, so yeah, competitors definitely do play a significant piece. You don't want to have no idea what your competitors are doing, because you need to be able to, differentiate yourself and create a unique value proposition, and that is important. But I would actually say that it's less important than knowing your ideal customer and knowing the ideal customers that your competitors have. So I think sometimes we focus too much on what is our competitor doing, when actually I really like to guide my clients to look at what are your competitors' customers doing and what are they saying. Because if you're able to understand what makes them happy or what they're not happy with, then you're able to then integrate that into your business to create a unique value proposition that not only answers your ideal customer, but perhaps also answers unmet needs of your competitors' customers. So I think it's about, once a year checking in, properly and doing full competitor analysis and keeping an eye on things, but actually really taking the time to deep dive into your customers and your competitors' customers, because that's where the golden nuggets are.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, so as we're coming towards the end of this, here's a question that we always like to ask all our guests. What's your power tip? Like, how do you, Cara, set yourself up for success every day?
Oh, I'm just trying to think as a busy mum of two. No, I think it's honestly, and I sound like a broken record, but it's having systems in place, because I don't start any one day from scratch, because I know that when my customers come into my world, that they are then going to be nurtured either with visible sales strategies or invisible sales strategies that nurture them along that buying process. So actually, I think I like to start the day with just assessing where we are, and especially on a Monday. Okay, what went well last week? What didn't go so well? And really try and, I know it's hard, block out some time to look at your business and not always be in your business, because I think sometimes we can, weeks can just run by and we're in the trenches and we're with our customers, and sometimes we need to just take a step back and say, okay, this block of time once a week, twice a week, or every day if you're able to do it, to really assess where you're at, and then you're able to optimize, without it feeling as overwhelming.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And I think it's a great point as well, is, being able to separate yourself from the business for a little bit. It's very, very hard, obviously, especially at this time of year, but it's something that's essential, because, you can get just lost in the weeds, and that's when mistakes happen.
It is, yeah.
Well, this has been fantastic. Before we go, Cara, please do tell everybody a little bit more about you and what you do.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you. No, so I have a company called Jarvi and Co, and I specifically work with B2B founders who are looking to scale from 6 to 7 figures and would like to create highly converting sales strategies that allow them not to be at the center of, the sales system for their business, and to really generate some freedom back within their business to do, whatever you please, to be more creative, strategic, or to just have some more time back within your business. And I have a unique 7-figure freedom method where I work with my clients to really look at integrating highly converting sales strategies so that they're able to generate some freedom and ultimately take their business to the next level without them being the bottleneck, and for them to often get back to enjoying the reason why they started their business in the first place. So yeah, I think it's an incredibly, rewarding job to have, to kind of be able to give some freedom back to founders, because I know how hard it can be to find enough time to do all the things. And when you're able to create, sales strategies that are able to do it when you're not always there, I think it can be very liberating.
Great. Well, I encourage everybody go check out Jarvi and Co and Cara's work. Thanks, Martha. Looks like pretty good, pretty busy in the questions in the chat today.
Yeah, they were very interested.
Oh,
yeah, so great.
Well, if anyone has any follow-up questions, please just drop me a message on LinkedIn and I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, thanks again, Cara Armstrong. Thank you, Martha Neumeister in Vienna, myself, John Golden. We will see you all for another Sales SheRo in the not too distant future.
October.
When we have a date?
Yes, we have a date. It's let me check. Give me just 1 second. The 2nd October.
2nd October, 2nd. Okay.
Yes.
With whom? Okay, you can check it out. We'll send out the things. We'll leave it for today.
Sorry.
See you next month. Thanks again, Cara, Martha, and all of you
for
tuned
joining.
in. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.